Hello. Hey, Em. Good morning. How are you doing today, girl? Well, I hope you're doing well. Today is the 19th of November, 2018. Let me double check to see if that's correct. Yep, the 19th. And in fact, it is Thanksgiving week here in California. And so I'm looking forward to enjoying Thanksgiving. I hope that you've got some interesting Thanksgiving plans. I'm sure your mom has always been instrumental in pulling together plans for the holidays, so I have a feeling that you've got plenty to do. And I hope that whatever it is, it's something enjoyable and safe and among family. Yeah, it's being Thanksgiving is pretty amazing. How do you like my hair? I bought a new hairspray. It's a sea salt spray. And I guess it's just hairspray with sea salt in it. And I like it. I like it because it tends to make my hair sort of tussly. You know, it makes it a little blocky. I don't know how to say it, but I really like the effect it has on my hair. It's kind of interesting. Hair products, at least for me, have always been where they start out really great. I love them. And then for like over a period of a month and a half, somehow I just get used to them or they lose their effect and I don't care for them anymore. After a while, I wonder, do hair products have this effect on you too? You know, it may not be the product. It may be completely psychological. Like if I use a shampoo, like when I first use the shampoo, it's like this amazing miracle product, and then after a month or two, it's like a ho hum product. So you know, I think it might have to do with human psychology, because hair actually doesn't change that much, and certainly the chemicals in the bottle don't change that much. I've had similar experiences with hair conditioner. It's kind of funny. I think it is probably completely psychological. Like I ran across an interesting hair dressing tool. I think it's called the Dyson Airstream, and it looks pretty amazing. I was surfing on Reddit.com, and some women were talking about how they loved this new hair dryer that was on the market, and it seemed pretty amazing, but it is expensive. It's like 100 times. It's like, certainly, it's like 10 times the cost of a regular hair dryer. But it seems pretty miraculous. It seems like an amazing device that can help, women create curls in their hair and things like that. So we'll see if it gains traction and gets useful. It got me to think about how engineers can produce new technology that catches on and changes society. That happened with the radio, it happened with the car, the television. It's happening today with tools of all kinds. It's happening with cameras and video equipment. And of course, it happens with hair dryers too. I know Dyson for me is a vacuum cleaner company. That's the way I see it. And I have a Dyson. I've had a Dyson for like a decade now, as for my vacuum cleaner, because I just love the vacuum cleaner. The bagless technology is amazing. It never breaks. It needs no maintenance. I just love the vacuum cleaner, and the suction on that vacuum cleaner is incredible. I'm very satisfied with my Dyson purchases, and I just love it. It's an example of how technology can take society by storm. And that can happen with almost anything. Look at smartphones, how smartphones have basically integrated into our lives so much. In fact, speaking of smartphones, I need to turn mine off. Oh, yeah. So, all right, there we go. All right, so yeah, it's kind of amazing how human beings just love technology. We love seeing advances through technology. Technology is a wonderful field. Batteries are a good example. The lithium ion batteries are everywhere. I used to live in a time where, there were only like one or two different kinds of batteries. There was lead sulfuric acid, and then there were just your standard like Duracell and Energizer batteries. you know. And then came, what was it, NiCad, nickel cadmium batteries, and now lithium ion batteries. Amazing, amazing. This whole era of rechargeable batteries is amazing. It's going to change the world. I mean, it already has changed the world. And it's kind of interesting how technologies like that are just, they're continuously arising. I'm sure there's like new refrigerator technology that we have yet to discover, new oven technology. Well, look at the microwave oven, for example. I mean, I've had a microwave oven in my home for like 30 years. And it's great. I wouldn't live without one. They're just so handy. I used a microwave oven today to heat a sandwich that I had for breakfast. And I used it last night, yesterday, to prepare my lunch. Just so convenient. No having to wait for a flame or a burner to heat up some medium like water to heat my food. It's really amazing. Microwaves are kind of a miracle. You stick them in, and out 30 seconds later, out comes food that's piping hot. Like, oh, and nothing touches it, right? Nothing touches the food. It is pretty much a miracle. It's a miracle machine, let me tell you. So it's pretty exciting. And look at video games today. How I've got friends and coworkers who love their video games and play their video games to the exclusion of almost all every other aspect of their lives. And I used to really be into video games, but I'm not anymore. They concern me a little bit. When I play video games, I love video games. I fell in love with them. I mean, there's no other way to describe the love that I had for video games but complete and utter love. And I still love classic video games. Centipede and Tempest, Miss Pac-Man, Mario Brothers. I mean, these are staple video games of my youth. Video games that I have detailed and emotional memories about. And I loved my Game Boy and my Game Boy Advance when they came out. Wow. I mean, I could just imagine the thrill. I remember the thrill of getting a Game Boy for the first time. I remember the thrill of getting a Game Boy Advance for the first time. I was struck with the small form factor. And, I even remember the Super Nintendo and how, that game console and how it just ruled my life for years. And I loved it. Loved it. Couldn't wait to get home from school to play more. So it's no mystery to me why video games like the Xbox and the PS4 are so important to a lot of people's lives. Here's the thing, though. I think it's now, I don't know. I think that there is a risk for some, maybe not for all, but for some, to spend too much time playing video games. Just as there is a risk for a person spending too much time reading. I see people spending a lot of time reading, and I love reading. And I'm saying this maybe to be a devil's advocate a little bit. Because one of the things I also don't care for is anti-intellectualism, but this is true. I know people who read so much that they neglect exercise. You know, you know, managing the health of your mind is very important. And so is managing the health of your body. And when one reads so much that, sadly, reading is a pretty passive activity. It involves a lot of sitting, but theoretically one could read and stand at the same time. In fact, one thing I've been doing lately is I've been listening to audiobooks when I'm riding on the stationary bike at the gym. That's working out pretty well for me. I'm kind of liking that. And I like this idea of exercising and reading at the same time. Or exercising or maybe listening to an audiobook at the same time. In fact, I had an experience just last week, I think. I was listening to the audiobook and bicycling on the treadmill or bicycling on the stationary bike, and I was thinking, that was amazing. That I bicycled for an hour on the stationary bike, and I was surprised at how quickly the time flew by. The time just passed by so quickly when I was listening to the audiobook and biking at the same time. Here's the thing for me in biking. Biking is what I call like a necessary evil. It's enjoyable to some extent, but I know I do it for an hour and it does help my legs, the strength of my legs. I've been noticing improvements ever since I've been biking. And biking using more intense settings so that my legs get the workout they deserve. And it's been really helpful. Biking has been able to round out my leg strength in a few ways that I think are significant. And so I'm going to continue biking, and I'm going to continue biking with intensity. But it also takes up a lot of time. And I loved listening to the audiobook at the same time. It was really great. There are a lot of other exercises that I could do with headphones in at the gym. I was thinking, well, I could do all kinds of things. There are a lot of things I could do with headphones in. I don't like to walk on the treadmill. Walking on the treadmill is a drag. Running on the treadmill is better. I could do long distance runs on the treadmill for like an hour or two. That would be interesting with headphones in. That might be worthwhile. Here's the thing about exercising a lot while listening to headphones and just zoning out. I'm a little bit concerned about repetitive stress injuries. But who knows? Maybe that concern is overblown. I mean, I could do something like a stair stepper with headphones on and just stair step to heaven. That would be a good use of time. I might want to consider doing that. Another option would be what's that other kind of running device where the elliptical? That machine almost takes no mental effort. And what I've noticed too is that at least at the levels that I'm working at, it does not require a great deal of physical fitness to do. It is so easy. Another thing I could do too with headphones in is what's that exercise where the rowing? Yeah, that is something I could do. Rowing would be a good choice for using headphones. So now that's a lot of cardio, but you know what? I think it could be helpful. Maybe I could just start doing cardio after work for an hour every day after work. That sounds like a pretty nice idea. And that is on top of the regular workouts that I do, the swimming and the running and the biking and the weightlifting. I think I could probably do that. I've been wanting to spend more time in the gym. And maybe headphones can get me into the gym more often. Yeah. And along with that comes doing a lot more laundry. So I need to get my rear in gear when it comes to doing laundry. I do my laundry every week, which is important to me. But I think I could do a better job of maintaining my gym clothing. And that is, I think what I need to do is really just go shopping and buy more of an array of workout clothes. I've got a lot of workout clothes, but I think I just need more workout clothes that I enjoy wearing a little bit more. These days I'm wearing just all synthetic. Everything synthetic. I really love the synthetic clothing as compared to the cotton. These synthetic polyesters that they've got now, the quick dry polyesters, they're so cool. When I exercise for an hour at really high intensity, I get sweaty, especially in gyms where the ventilation in those gyms is just not that good. And so I get really sweaty really fast. And it's great. It's healthy to be sweaty and to work out like that. Though I'm really a fan of these synthetic clothes. Wow. So much of a difference between the synthetics and cotton. Cotton, when I wear cotton, it's often, well, it starts out relatively light and cool, but as soon as I start sweating, it starts getting real warm real fast. And that's one thing about working inside of a gym, and where ventilation isn't that great. A lot of sweating happens. And not only that, but it just, it gets hot. It gets hot. It's about temperature management. And for me, my body runs best. Like, I'm able to run more comfortably when I'm running cool. When the surface of my skin is cool and cold. And, my core body temperature is maintained at a moderate temperature and does not flare up because I'm wearing some kind of cotton clothes. Yeah. You know what? That's what I'll do. I think I'm going to definitely spend more time in the gym, and I think I might spend more time with headphones on. We'll see how that goes. Don't worry, I won't turn the headphones on very loud. I tend to turn them on very quietly. And the nice thing about the gym is that it's a pretty quiet environment, so yeah. So the other day I went to visited a friend at Starbucks, and she was a little hard of hearing. And so, I got a little closer when I was speaking to her, but I found that I had to raise my voice a little bit in Starbucks. I don't know what it is about these restaurants, but they are so loud. So here I am, talking with my friend across the table, and we're having a conversation, and then in the middle of the conversation, buzz, the Starbucks barista, right, is grinding coffee beans. Like 20 feet away from us. Grind, buzz. I'm trying to have a conversation. I have heard that sometimes restaurants allow these echoey, sound, loud sound environments to persist, because people have a sort of a pleasant, I guess on a subconscious level, there's this idea that, I don't know, the cacophony is something beneficial and enjoyable to listen to. That's not true for me. I want to hear what my conversational partner is saying. I am paying close attention to what they say and how they say it. And when I've got these buzzes and echoes going on in the room, it is a real challenge. It's quite a task to pay attention to another person because of the distractions. And even for a person with very good hearing like me, with high levels of focus in conversation, I still get distracted occasionally when, when there is this commotion around me. And in a way, it's sort of, I think of it as somewhat disrespectful to the other person. Like, I'm getting distracted by this or the other thing. I really try to focus hard on the other person. And, in restaurants and coffee shops that are around today, that is getting increasingly difficult. I think for me, an ideal place to be would be indoors, protected from the weather, in a home, right? A living room where there's quiet, where, I can focus on another person's voice and their facial expressions, and, sometimes even pauses when and where a person pauses in a sentence can be very telling, And, when my attention is drawn away, it just, it's so distracting. I think it decreases the depth of a conversation, the possibility of deep conversations. The probability goes down in places like this, and it's really a tragedy. And so in a way, I'm constantly on the lookout for restaurants and coffee shops that are quiet. Because, like I mentioned, for me, it's about respect that I offer the other person. It's about consideration. I'm giving them my attention as a gift, right? I'm in the gift-giving mood. I want to offer my interest in the other person through my eyes and through my attention. And I just find it really hard to do in some places. That's not to say that going outside is any better. Outside, there are quite a number of distractions. There's the winds, there's the sound of wildlife, there's the sound of cars. It's not always very quiet, even out of doors. I guess I'm kind of like a silence junkie. There's something amazing about silence. There's so much potential in it. Silence gives you the opportunity to focus. Your conscious mind, like a lighthouse, focuses its bright light onto a place in the sea. Your attention is like the light of a lighthouse. It focuses on certain areas, and you want to have as little distraction as possible if you want to maintain focus. And it's that focus which brings enjoyment. That's what I enjoy about this sort of uninterrupted focus is where I get my flow, right? It's how I get my flow when I'm talking to others. I don't know if you read this book called Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, but it was an amazing book, and it's definitely worth reading, and it might even be worth reading for me again. But you know what? It really brought into the fore, into the world of psychology, a much better understanding of what it is to be focused, and what is it that makes time fly by, and what is it that brings joy and happiness. And being in this flow state is definitely one of those things that's important. Well, anyway, so maybe I'll spend some time. Well, you know what? This is the last day we're going to have this book, Hark, Christmas Sampler. And what do you say we just read one last story from it? So recently I've been focused on the folklore of Christmas. And that is one of the holidays that I enjoy the most. And I've gone through Christmas plants, Christmas animals, Christmas poetry, Christmas carols, and now we're going through some Christmas stories. And yesterday, or the day before, we talked about the Babushka, an Italian folk tale. And here we have a Syrian folk tale that relates to Christmas. It's essentially a Syrian legend, and I think it might be fun to explore. So let's take some time out and read it. The story is called The Littlest Camel, and I haven't read it before. And I'm curious to see what this Syrian legend is about. So here we go. It happened that the vizier to 3 great kings visited a camel market and purchased many strong camels for a hasty trip. Among the camels he bought for his masters was a mother camel who was exceedingly strong of leg and wind. But she had this one drawback. She had newly calved. The camel seller neglected to mention this small defect, and the vizier failed to notice it, for the littlest and newest camel was resting, still weak-legged and dewy-eyed, by a post. When the price was paid and the camels rounded up for the caravan, the littlest camel went too, of course, following his mama. This time the vizier was too busy overseeing the packaging of the saddlebags to notice the littlest camel. He was checking on the skins of fresh water and the packets of dates and nuts, the little honey cakes and the bags of dried olives, and he was counting the presents of silver and gold crowns and jeweled boxes filled with coins and sweet-smelling herbs. The camels hawked and grunted and spit as camels always do, all except the littlest camel, who spent much of his time lying by his mama's side, drinking her milk. So each time the vizier looked over his master's camels, he missed the littlest one. When at last the caravan was ready, the littlest camel was lost behind all the bundles and bags, and when the camels swung awkwardly to their feet, complaining in that gruff camel voice, the littlest camel seemed but a shadow beneath his mother's great bulk. So it was not until they were deep into the desert, where the sandy dunes seemed high as mountains and the winds howled about them like a mad thing, that the vizier even noticed he was there. And then it was too late to send him back. What a struggle the littlest camel had, up the high dunes and down, up rocky slopes and over, stumbling and tumbling. His little legs could scarcely hold him up. But he could see his mama ahead and would not be left behind. At last the caravan arrived at a town. Surely, the littlest camel thought, surely we shall rest now. But the caravan kept winding its way down the streets. Men and women and children came out of houses to watch. And one time a boy shied a stone in their direction. It hit the littlest camel on the side of his head, and he fell down to his knees in the hard-packed dirt. When he looked up, the caravan, here we go, My thing stopped. So, at last the caravan arrived at a town. Surely the littlest camel thought, surely we shall rest now. But their caravan kept winding its way down the streets. Men and women and children came out of houses to watch one, and one time a boy shied a stone in their direction. It hit the littlest camel on the side of his head, and he fell down to his knees in the hard-packed dirt. When he looked up, the caravan with his mama was almost out of sight. He struggled up once more, afraid to lose her, but the dust of the caravan's passage stung his eyes. So he began to run with them half-crossed into slits, half-closed into slits. That is how he failed to notice that the caravan had stopped in front of a stable at the road's end, and that everyone, vizier and kings and camel drivers and camels too, was kneeling beside the road. He ran right past, skidding to a halt in the stable itself and falling over in a tangle of dirty, bruised legs. This time he was so exhausted he could only lie there moaning. Then he felt a small hand touch his forehead. But when he opened his eyes, there was no one nearby. A voice spoke to him in his mind, a child's voice, not any older than his own. "Well done, littlest one. You came so far, and you never gave up. Because of that, you shall be my ambassador to all the children of the world." And so it is that every year, on the anniversary of that night, the littlest camel repeats his journey, going from house to house and leaving gifts for all the boys and girls. If the gifts are not as fine as those his mama and the other camels carried in the caravan, they are certainly as good, for they are carried with loving wishes from the Christ child himself. Adopted from a Syrian legend. Wow. What a fascinating story that is. You know, there was really only one aspect of Christmas that I could sort of pull from that story, and that was what happened in the last sentence. The last sentence. Sort of equating the baby camel with the Christ child. Fascinating. And I thought it was interesting about how the little presents brought by the camel were as good as, say, the presents in the king's caravan, because they were carried with loving wishes. You know, they were carried lovingly. You know, to me that speaks of the intent, right? Maybe the value is not wrapped up in the market value of the object itself, but it's wrapped up in, say, how another person has carried and handled it and offered it to another. So that's a beautiful sentiment. Pretty interesting. I thought it was interesting too how there seems to be this stereotypical view of a camel, how it spits a lot and how it breathes. I think that's interesting. You know, horses, I really haven't seen that many camels, so I don't have a good understanding of what a camel is or does, and it may be that they spit a lot. I don't know. Horses, I'm a lot more familiar with, and in my mind, horses don't really spit. So it's kind of interesting. I would be interested to see this spitting camel. Maybe there's some videos on YouTube that show it. Well, anyway, one thing we could do is go through another passage of Mary McKenzie's book, Peaceful Living. So today's the 19th, and the quote for the day comes from James Fenimore Cooper. And the quote states, "The tendency of democracies is, in all things, to mediocrity." You know what? I think that's totally true. Mediocrity. And it's tragic. So let's see what Mary Mackenzie has to say. Her comments begin with the subtitled passage, "A New Way to Look at Fairness." I used to think, oh boy, I'm definitely going to have to get another book. I just don't care for Mary Mackenzie's writing style. I used to think that fair meant splitting things evenly. This could apply to family money, the pie we were preparing to eat for dessert, or housework, among many other things, because I had this philosophy about fairness. I spent a great deal of time critiquing whether others were doing their share of the work, eating more than their share, or spending too much of their share. I emphatically believed that fairness meant equal shares. When I started living the nonviolent communication process, and my idea of fairness changed. Then I started living the nonviolent communication process, and my idea of fairness changed. In nonviolent communication, we believe that fairness is connected to people's needs. When we serve food, we might consider who is hungriest, who can best afford to buy food later, and perhaps whose schedule makes it impossible for them to eat later. In splitting housework, we might consider who enjoys doing certain jobs the most, how people contribute in other ways to the family, and whether anyone is physically incapable of contributing. In this way, we consider everyone's needs for ease, enjoyment, overall contribution to the household, and health. This process enhances the connection, joy, involvement, and investment of everyone involved. And the thought for the day is, divide something up today by connecting to the needs of the people involved. Notice if this feels different than other times when you divided things equally. So, as you can tell, I'm not necessarily a fan of this passage. Here's a little bit of critique from me. I'm getting the sense that Mary Mackenzie, essentially, at least in her writings in this book, is basically desperately attempting to shoehorn every situation into using needs as a perspective to understand the situation, and then calling that nonviolent communication. In my mind, this is a very simplistic way of thinking about nonviolent communication. It's the idea that she has to shoehorn everything, like things like justice, things like fairness, into this sort of appreciation for needs. Basically she's sort of shoehorning NVC into everything. And then she's talking as if she is or represents or knows what NVC is all about. We believe. That is a thoughtless statement. Because, in a way, there's so many aspects, so many reasons why that statement is thoughtless. First of all, it creates a distinction between an in-group and out-group. We believe. I don't know. It's an overgeneralization. Is another way to think of it. It creates a power over, power under dynamic between the speaker and the reader. As a thoughtless statement. I think Mary Mackenzie is getting tired of writing this book. She's using very lazy constructions continually throughout this book, where she says, I used to think this, or I used to think that. And so when she does that, her construction is, in the past, I used to think this, and basically she makes something up. She makes up a simplification right? She creates these straw man arguments. She makes up a simplification and then shoehorns the new this situation into, say, NVC speak, or at least what she thinks is NVC speak. And a focus on needs is valuable. It's a valuable alternate perspective, but all it is a perspective. It's a philosophical distinction, and it's not necessarily a way to live one's life. Although you could use a single perspective to live your life, it's useful, right? It's a useful tool to have this alternate perspective. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's better or applicable in all things. I think she may be conveying a mistaken notion about, I don't know, about NVC as a way of life. Now, NVC can be a way of life. In a way, it is a way of life for me. I don't know, it just seems simplistic. Anyway, I don't know if you're getting that, those indicators too. So I'm definitely going to replace this book with another book. Something, a book that, where there's better writing. I just don't care for the writing style. I've mentioned that before. So I think I'm not going to read this book anymore. So that'll force me to get something new. All right. So with that critique, ending on a positive note. No. Well, let's go through the question and answer period. So Q&A, it's time for Q&A. So Q&A is where I answer questions from a book of questions that I've got on my Kindle. And the reason I'm answering them is because I want to give you, Emily, some insight into my personal experience, my preferences, my attitudes, my ideas, to questions that you may have wanted to ask, but didn't ask for one reason or another. So, all right. So question number 331. 332. What is the highest mountain you have ever climbed? Well, let's see. The highest mountain I've ever climbed. That's a good question. Well, I grew up in Taos, New Mexico, which is at the foot of the Rocky Mountains, or the base of the Rocky Mountains, the southern end. And so we had some very high mountains. Maybe the question is, for a mountain that I've climbed, what is the greatest change in elevation that I've ever climbed? Because the highest altitude, I think the highest altitude I might have ever climbed to or done hiking at is about 12,000 feet. Yeah. I think I've been as high as 14,000 feet. I may not have ever been higher than that. I may have been at 14,000 feet, say, in Colorado. But I've definitely walked around at 12,000 feet and certainly skied at Taos Ski Valley at 12,000 feet. I can say that, practically speaking, I have commonly been at the 12,000 foot level and done some hiking around and sport. Question number 333. Do you like to drive fast or safely? I like to drive safely. I'm a safety engineer, and so safety is important to me. And so, yes, I drive as safely as I can. Question number 334. Do you enjoy popcorn while watching movies? Totally. Now, do I buy popcorn a lot at the movie theaters while watching movies? No, I don't. Popcorn at movie theaters is very expensive. And also, I'm not a big fan of what I'd call automatic eating. Yeah, or just where you just eat in a thoughtless way. For me, my eating habits are very focused and thoughtful and mindful. I do mindful eating. So, so yeah, I enjoy popcorn. In fact, I'll have popcorn at home and I'll watch a movie, say using Amazon Prime streaming. And I love the popcorn that I prepare. Quite often, I end up seasoning it myself with herbs and spices and pepper and cayenne pepper. Yeah, that's good stuff. Question number 335. Do you know how to build paper airplanes? Oh, yeah. In fact, I used to build paper airplanes with you, Emily. I don't know if you remember. I'm sure you do. I seem to recall that I asked you about some memories that you had in the past, and you wrote making paper airplanes. And yeah, let me tell you, I remember that time. We had some great times making paper airplanes when you were a kid. Question number 336. Do you know how to play the harmonica? No. I have bought, say, harmonica training kits that have instructions and music, and that is sheet music and the harmonica itself, and tried to play around on it. But I've never sort of been consistently playing the harmonica. Like I know what I'm doing. Question number 337. Are you generally a science guy? Oh yeah, I'm a science guy. Yeah, I've been studying science for years. And science is one of the things that I enjoyed thinking about the most. All of my focus on psychology can be thought of in an alternate way as a focus on science. And I've had an interest in science ever since I was a kid, ever since I was in 6th grade. Mrs. Lee was my science teacher. And I remember even then, when I was in my English class, one of the essays I wrote was on the 3 laws of thermodynamics. I kid you not. And the zeroth law. I wrote an essay. Oh, what I would give to have a copy of that essay. But yeah, here I am. I wrote that essay on the laws of thermodynamics in my English class when I was in 7th grade. Yeah. What was the name of my teacher in 7th grade? Mr. Torres. Yeah. He was a really good teacher. I really enjoyed him. He also taught me the Greek letters of the alphabet, which came in really handy in my science classes. Okay. Question number 338. Would you ever date a person just based on social status? Sure. Question 339. Have you sued anyone? No, I haven't. Question number 340. Have you gotten sued? And no, I haven't. I try to stay as far from the courts as possible. It's easy to get sucked into. I think of them as kind of like quicksand. You know, this whole idea of rights-based justice is a good idea and all, but I think there are deeper things. You know, quite often, I think, I don't know. If, you know, working through lawyers in the courts can be a trap for a lot of people. A way that they sort of express their anger and sadness. And anyway. Question number 341. Have you had a surprise birthday party? Yeah, I have. In fact, I just had a surprise birthday party last year. Thanks to my brother Marcos and his wife Catherine. Thank you. I appreciate that. I had a fantastic time at my last birthday. Oh, I've got some good news. So, Em, you have an aunt. Her name is Barbriana Sofia Trujillo. And yesterday I found out that she is getting married to her boyfriend. Matthew is his name. They live in Taos, New Mexico, and the marriage is going to happen. They're planning it for April 6th, 2019. And pretty awesome. So I'm going to probably be flying out there early April and hanging out with the family up in Taos and, being at the wedding of my sister, who is your aunt. So congratulations to my sister Barbie. And it's something you ought to know about, Emily. And I'll try to bring back some good questions, some good pictures. What's my next question? Let's see. Question number 342. Can you give a back rub or a massage? Well, I can give one, but I don't think of myself as very competent. I've been thinking about getting a massage therapist certification. I think that might be kind of a fun skill to learn, but all this massage schools are far away. They're like in Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo, and they take like 500-hour classes. They take a lot of time. Maybe this summer I'll do it. That's a possibility. Once I get into the groove of traveling an hour, I might just very well do it. One of these days I'll do it. Question number 343. Do you get drunk and how often? And the answer is no. I don't drink alcohol. Question number 344. Well, you know what? Before I go on to this whole alcohol thing, and I've got I'll talk about it at a different time. But I do have some thoughts about alcohol, and why it's probably a good idea to stay away from it. So anyway, I'm just going to wrap it up right now. And Emily, I want to thank you for clicking the link and taking an interest in getting to know me just a little bit better. I hope what we've discussed so far today was of interest to you. Maybe you learned something about who I am, and maybe you got a clearer sense of who you might be too. And I hope you have a fantastic day today. And I'll talk to you later. We had a nice text message exchange yesterday. I told you about the running race that I was in yesterday and how I got first place in my age group at the running race after running 3 miles. So that was a really nice accomplishment. And I hope to participate in the Santa's Run this coming December. I think it's December 1st or December 3rd. I forget which one. So I'm looking forward to that race. I think the race might be at La Prisma Mission. Anyway, I'll talk to you later, girl. Have a wonderful day. Peace out.